Hello and welcome to the Google Hangout with Mondelez International. I'm your host, Dave Netley, and today we're going to be talking about our finance graduate programs. As always, we've been taking your questions over the last couple of weeks. We want to make this as informative as possible, and we hope that we can sort of address all of your questions in helping you make the decision to apply. So over the next half an hour or so, I'm going to be directing your questions to two people within Mondelez International. First of all, we have Dan, who is one of our senior leaders. He works a lot with our early careers intake of graduates. And we also have Jess, who is on our graduate scheme. They'll be introducing themselves shortly. For those of you who are watching this live, don't forget you can tweet us live using our handle at MDLZ. For those of you who are watching the recording of this after the broadcast on YouTube, you can ask any questions that you feel you want answering on the comments box below, and someone will get back to you on that as soon as possible. So, without further ado, I'm going to allow Dan and Jess to introduce themselves. So, Dan, over to you.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. My name's Dan Shepherd. I'm the UK and Ireland Financial Controller here at Mondelez. I've been with the company for 15 years. I actually joined on the graduate scheme myself from Kraft Foods originally, and I've moved through a variety of different roles since then. Most notably, I guess I did a few different roles to start with within the Kraft UK business, and then moved on to some project roles where I worked in France for a year. I moved to Bratislava in Slovakia, where I helped set up our shared service centre. I then moved back to the UK and did a role in our sales, finance, commercial finance team looking after coffee. Then I moved over to Zurich, where I spent 2.5 years working in a European role, improving finance business processes across Europe. And then when Kraft took over Cadbury 3 or 4 years ago, I moved back into the UK business, into the commercial finance team, helping to set up the kind of new business together. So I did that for 3 years, heading up the sales finance team, and about 6 months ago I moved into my current role as UK and Ireland Financial Controller. I'm now based in Bourneville at the Cadbury factory in Birmingham, which is a great role, dealing with all aspects of our financial accounting, internal controls, overheads, treasury, so really a broad scope to my role. You can tell I enjoy it as I've been here for so long, but the longest I've been in any job is just over 2 years, so I've had an awful lot of variety, worked in lots of different places, met lots of different people. Another part to my role now, as Dave touched on, is my work with what we call our Early Careers Talent Forum. So representatives from each of the functions across the business, where we sit on a group that is looking at our recruitment strategy for graduates and the shape and structure of our graduate programs, and also looking to kind of both from a recruitment point of view and the nature of those programs to make sure that they're challenging and give our graduates the best start in their careers. I'll pass over to Jess to introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name's Jess Rhodes-Jones. I'm currently on the 3rd year of a 3-year finance grad programme with Mondelez International. So to tell you a bit about how I got into the grad scheme to start with, so I didn't really follow a typical path into finance. I actually studied biology at York University. While I was doing my degree, I did a year working in a lab and decided that science wasn't for me. I spent a couple of summers working at the Boots headquarters in Nottingham and decided that I really wanted to get into much more of a commercial organisation. I spent a lot of time talking to lots of different people to get advice about what sorts of industries I'd enjoy. And something like lots of people kept saying to me was, it's all about the brands, it's about kind of what the company stands for, what the values are, and for me, Mondelez International really stood out as a company. So I'm on my 3rd year of the grad scheme at the moment. So I spent my 1st year working in Dublin, in the Dublin office, in the finance team over there, and then my 2nd year I was in Uxbridge in the sales finance role, and then now I'm in manufacturing finance in Bourneville, same place as Dan, in the home of Cadbury in Birmingham.
Okay, thank you very much, Jess. So I'm going to move on to the questions now. And as you would have heard in Dan's introduction there's a lot of mention of Mondelez International and Cadbury and Kraft. And so I think that leads into our first question, which is who are Mondelez International? What do we do?
So I'll pick that one up. Mondelez International, I guess, as we've alluded to, was created after the combination of Cadbury and Kraft Foods. So who we are really is, it's all about our brands in terms of our consumer facing. So we have loads of great brands that everyone will have heard of, even if you've never heard of Mondelez International before. So from Cadbury and Toblerone, Milka on the chocolate side, to Belvita, Oreo in biscuits, and Philadelphia, Kenko. The list is endless in terms of going through our list of brands, and that's what excited me about the company to start with. Obviously, from what Jess said, it's also what excited her about joining, and it's still what excites me today. And I think most of the people who work here, it's all about the excitement of seeing our great products on the shelves. It's something you can get really enthusiastic about. Certainly when you work here, all your friends and family, all they ever want is, well, I get disappointed looks if I ever turn up anywhere without a goodie bag full of our products, and that's what makes it really, really fun to work here. We're also a company with a massive global reach. I guess it's in our name, but it's borne out by what we do in countries across the world. So we operate in over 80 countries. We have a worldwide revenue of over $36 billion. The UK and Ireland is a really big part of that, though. So our revenue is over $3 billion in the UK and Ireland. So we're a massive organisation, gives you a lot of opportunity in terms of working with people and also working yourself across the world, but also in UK and Ireland, you're a big part of that. So you feel as though, you know, we're really important and valued by the company overall.
Okay, Dan, thank you very much. So moving on to our next question. Yes, I want to ask you this one, and that's about the graduate program itself. And what is the structure of the finance grad scheme that we run?
Okay, so the structure of the finance grad scheme is to have 3-year-long placements, which move around different areas of finance. So the idea is that by the end of the 3 years, you've really got a really broad range and a really broad idea of what finance is all about in an FMCG company. So the roles are really varied, and I'll come on to explain that in a bit later. Yeah, so for the finance grad scheme, you spend three years on 3 separate placements, possibly in different locations. So I've been in 3 locations now for the 3 years. But yeah, it's a really varied graduate scheme.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so as just mentioned, she was based in Dublin for a while, and Dan, if you could answer this one, is about where will our graduates be based during the finance program?
So what I'd say to that, Dave, is it depends on the individual roles that you do. So the first key thing about our graduate scheme, as Jess said, you do 3 different 1-year placements, but all of those 3 roles are real roles. They are jobs that need doing within the organization, which is great because it gives real accountability and it gives you, you know, something real. You're not just being asked to do things to learn, you're being asked to do it because it's important to the business as well, which we think really helps you to learn and feel part of the company. What that does mean is that everyone will have a slightly different experience of their grad scheme. So the roles can be based in any of our locations. So predominantly we have Uxbridge for our commercial finance teams and Bourneville for our kind of operational finance teams. As Jess said, she's moved around in 3 different places. She's had a year in Dublin, a year in Uxbridge, and a year now in Bourneville. The experience will vary. It is really critical for anyone thinking to apply that you are flexible on location. So we wouldn't guarantee for anyone that you're going to be in one place for 3 years. We'd probably almost guarantee the opposite, that you won't be in one place for 3 years, which I think for a lot of people is really exciting, and it's certainly one of the things that makes it really fun, really challenging. You get to meet a lot of new people, and you also develop yourself. You know, kind of most of the people that will be applying will have gone away to university for the first time, had that experience of living away from home, but moving each year as well. It's a personal development challenge, I think, as well as the opportunities you get from working in a different place and with lots of different people. The other thing that you will have opportunities, as I said, Jess worked in Dublin. We're looking to increase the scope of the kind of international placements as well within our graduate scheme. So you may well also get the opportunity to do one of your placements somewhere else in Europe, maybe in Bratislava, where we've got a big service centre not in terms of just kind of processing operational, but in terms of a lot of really key finance roles are based there. So there's certainly opportunity there, as well as in any of the countries in Europe where we have offices.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess moving on from that then, so we've mentioned how the need for mobility when joining the graduate program, but is there much day-to-day travel on the role? Dan, can you answer that one for us?
Sure. I mean, again, I would say it depends. It depends on what exact role you're doing. Generally, I would say it's fairly limited in most of the roles. So within the finance graduate scheme, you're not going to get a role that means you're going to be away from wherever you're based for 3 days a week. There will be occasional travel. And as I say, it depends on which role it would be. We're a European company. There may be occasional travel to head office in Zurich or one of the other locations, but you wouldn't have a role where you're based in one site and then you're away from home for three nights a week. It's generally much more limited.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Dan mentioned a little bit there about the opportunity to work abroad on the program. So we know that there is that opportunity. I mean, Jess, would you like to sort of go into a little bit more detail about working abroad on the graduate program through your experience?
Yes, definitely. So, as Dan and I both said, so I spent a year working in the Dublin office. So for me, it was the first time I'd ever really moved out of the country. Didn't know a single person when I moved over to Dublin. So for me, it was a case of, right, you're thrown into a country, you don't know anyone, got to go out and make friends. So for me, it was a fantastic experience to really be really independent. So I had a new job, new team, people I'd never met before in work. And then in terms of the social side of things, you just have to get out there and join clubs and make friends in a new country, which is a brilliant way to develop, as Dan said. And it really sets you up really well for future roles. So moving cities is a really useful thing to be able to do easily in a FMCG, especially a global one like Mondelez. And so doing that on the grad scheme when you're kind of young and you're all right, kind of going out and joining clubs and meeting new people, it's a really useful thing to do.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So I guess moving on from that, and that we've mentioned that the structure of the finance graduate program will have people moving around in different types of roles. Jess, what sort of roles are available for graduates on the finance graduate program?
Okay, so there's loads of different roles, as Dan said. So in terms of my experiences, so the role I was doing in Dublin, it's quite a small finance team over there. So I was basically supporting all the different areas of it. So doing a bit of pensions, a bit of tax, a bit of central finance, sales finance, which was a fantastic first role for me, especially coming from a background with no finance knowledge at all, having done a biology degree. My second year then was working in the sales finance team, working on the seasonal category. So that's all the Easter chocolate, Christmas chocolate, and all year round gifting like Milk Tray and Terry's All Gold boxes of chocolates. So in that role, I was business partnering the category planning team. And so they're a team that work with the sales guys to help plan basically what they're going to sell to our customers. So customers such as Tesco, Asda, Morrison's, Sainsbury's, and all the little independent shops that you'll see like Nicer. So that was a really fantastic role for me, a really strong sort of business partnering role where I was sat with the category planning team and I felt more like part of their team than as much of a finance person. Then the role I'm doing at the moment, so I'm working in manufacturing finance in Bourneville. So I'm looking after overheads at the moment. So that's basically looking at all the costs involved in producing our chocolate in the Bourneville factory. So things like energy, cleaning, maintenance and repairs of machinery, depreciation of all our assets in the factory. So you can see from the experience I've had a really varied experience touching across most of the areas of finance that we cover at Mondelez. But then other people who have different experiences, so other grad roles available include category finance, which is basically looking more into a category such as the seasonal chocolate category and really understanding kind of the profits we make from it and how, looking at the profits of, say, one particular category. Then you can also go look into more of an internal controls role. So that's what one of the grads in the year below me is currently doing. So internal controls is kind of looking at internal controls all around the business, so looking at internal controls in marketing, sales. So she has to do a bit of travelling around with work, so she might go down to Uxbridge for a couple of days, to Crediton, which is our office down in Devon, for a couple of days, and basically doing mini internal audits of all the sites around the country. So yeah, a lot of variety.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. Thank you very much. I guess then moving on from that, in terms of all these different types of roles that are available, Dan, I guess you would be the best person to answer this one. Is that will the graduates get the opportunity to choose the roles that they undertake on this rotational scheme?
I mean, the simple answer would be no, you don't get to choose. However, you do get to give a lot of input. So the roles would be selected by our finance leadership team that I sit on, which is where we manage the kind of career development, career progression planning of all of our finance team. So the graduates aren't seen any differently from the rest of our finance population, that we look at all of the individuals within the team and what the best next steps are for them. Obviously, the graduates are slightly different in that, we're going to move you after a year, so we make sure we plan that in advance. So whilst you don't get to choose, I would expect each of the graduates, as they go through their scheme, we have regular reviews, performance reviews with their line manager they have at that time, and also their mentor, who's a kind of senior person who's assigned to them throughout their graduate program to give them advice and coaching as they go through, but also an opportunity for each of the graduates to talk to their mentor and talk about what they're learning at the moment and what areas they particularly need to develop in, to be able to be best placed when they come off the scheme to get the role that they really want. And in terms of that, I would then listen to that input in terms of their preferences. So, what areas do they enjoy working in more, but also really what areas are going to stretch them most. So what people want to do and enjoy doing is definitely a part of it, but really, really most critically for me, and as I said, in my role in the early career forum, I will talk to each of the graduates before we make that decision and make sure I know what I think they want to do, and we will talk about it as a finance leadership team to make sure we put each person into a role that gives them breadth of experience. I think that's really important during that graduate scheme, is the best time where we can really stretch you to do 3 very different roles, so you come out of it with an experience that allows you to do almost anything within the finance function afterwards. So that's the really critical point for us.
Perfect, thank you very much. Okay then, next question that came through, and Jess, you'd be best placed for this one, is that, what does the first year on the programme look like generally? What sort of things do you get up to?
Okay, so as well as your day-to-day role that you get given, one of the really important things about the first year on the grad scheme is the fact that you spend an induction week together at the start of the grad scheme. So this is the week with all of the other graduates that you start with. So in my year there were 2 finance grads, me and one other. There were also 8 sales and marketing grads, a couple of R&D grads, engineering and CS&L. So 16 of us all together, and we spent the first week basically touring around the UK, going to visit all the different factories, which is a fantastic way to get to know your way around the business, to meet people in different sites, which is really important for when kind of contacting people in the future, if you know who works in different sites. So that's basically the first week, and then you start work, and throughout the year you have different training days, or sometimes 2 training days for a particular course. So this covers things like presentation skills, project management, how to develop at Mondelez, and for those courses you'll all be back together again as a graduate year group, which is again fantastic. It's fantastic to meet up with everyone because you've got to know each other really well in the induction week, and you'll often be in the same office as a few of the other grads as well, either based in Uxbridge or Bourneville or one of the other sites. And yeah, so it's a really kind of useful structure to the year, having those sort of training days spaced throughout it, as well as doing a day job as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, Jess mentioned a few different functions there, as well as finance. We have HR and sales and marketing, and I guess some of the people looking at the finance scheme are sort of very tempted by it, but they're wondering, do they get the opportunity to actually work in the other functions on the programme? Knowing that it's rotational, is there the opportunity to work in another function during the programme?
So not specifically, no. So you won't actually be working in another function. So you'll be doing 3 finance roles, but the finance roles but I don't think any of them ever just work just with the finance team. You'll always be working business partnering another team in the business. So, for example, in my second year, I was business partnering the category planning team. And so, as I said, I was sitting with them, and I really felt more like part of the category planning team, who was kind of a finance advisor to them and kind of someone who would help and support and influence them in terms of the seasonal finances. So you really do get exposure to a lot of different functions in the business, even if you're not specifically working in sales or marketing or CS&L, which is fantastic because you get to be able to talk to different people and maybe think about cross-functional moves for after the grad scheme, which is something that Mondelez is really keen for people to do. But on the grad scheme itself, you will be doing 3 finance roles.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next question that came in, which is, I suppose, very, very relevant to people that are sure that they want to go into a finance graduate program, is that why should they choose a finance graduate program within Mondelez International or within, the food industry over those of like the financial institutions such as banks? Dan, would you be able to help us with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it partly depends on what it is that you're looking for. So for some people, probably going to work in financial institutions, one of the big 4 accountancy firms, is exactly the right choice. Maybe I can explain why, for me, working for Mondelez International or within a kind of FMCG industry is, for me, much more exciting than if I'd gone to work for, one of the big 4 firms or gone to work in a bank. And that's, I guess it's twofold. One is the brands and the products where you've got something really tangible that you can get excited about. I really love the fact that I can, I have to do the weekly shopping each week and I go into the supermarket and I see our brands and I see the kind of looks on people's faces when they're choosing them, and I'm very sad. And when I'm standing at the tills waiting to pay, I'm always looking across at everyone shopping, and generally everyone I look at will have at least one of our products in their trolley. And I get a great deal of satisfaction about that. And it is that kind of, you can get excited about it. And I have to say, I find it hard to imagine how you get excited to go away and talk to someone about what it is that you do at a bank. But I may be obviously being completely unfair and biased about that. But that's, for me, why I think you should choose a career in a place like this. And the other thing is really what Jess touched on, in that you're not just a finance person when you work here. So if you really, you think you want to develop a career as an accountancy expert and that technical and skill set is what you want to develop, then you might be better off in one of those institutions. If you want to work for somewhere where you understand that and your accountancy skill set and the financial skills you learn are critical, but they're not the main part of your role, then I think working in industry where you get to business partner all kinds of different functions in all of the roles that you do, for me, again, generates much more interest and excitement because you're working with different people each day. In different roles, you'll sit with different parts of the business. So as Jess said, our category finance teams sit with the category teams, so with their marketing colleagues. They're the teams that they work with day to day. Our sales finance team work with the sales people that they're working with, either in a customer team on Tesco or whichever team they're working with. They're the people that they sit with and work with. And that's what makes it, again, really interesting. It makes it interesting in terms of the different people you work with. You really feel that you're part of the business and driving it forward. And the other thing is the opportunities it gives you. So as Jess said, again, whilst the graduate scheme itself is 3 finance placements, there's an awful lot of people from finance. The skill set that you build up in finance really helps you to build a career elsewhere. So we've got finance people that are now in HR, we've got finance people that are now in sales, finance people that are now plant director in some of our big factories. It enables you to build a skill set that you can take into lots of different career paths in the future.
Thank you very much. I guess moving on from that is that in the news you see the sort of horror stories of the working hours of a lot of finance people and on graduate programs as well. And I guess one of the important things that a lot of our applicants want to know is what's the work-life balance like at Mondelez International?
So I think that's something that we're pretty good at as a function and as a company as a whole. we do have times when it's really busy and you end up working long hours. So I'm not going to lie and pretend, it's all perfect and we leave here at 5 o'clock every day. There are times when it's month end or year end where there are peaks of workload, but for the majority of the time, it's not like that here. Most people have fairly, sensible working hours. I think something we're really good at is flexibility. So, I usually work 1 day a week from home. If I, or any of my team need to be at home for the morning to, meet someone at the house or something, then that's fine. We don't say, I don't expect everyone to be in by 9 o'clock and stay till 5:30, and if they're not, then I'm looking out to wonder where they are. There's a lot of flexibility and trust in the relationship that I know whether people are doing a good job and they can manage their own kind of work-life balance around that. And I think that's something that's really important to us and really works well here. I think the other thing in terms of our culture, and another reason that it's really exciting place to work, is it's a fun atmosphere. People, really get along with each other, take the time to enjoy being at work most of the time. Not all of the time, of course, it is work. But also we get involved in other things in terms of community activities, volunteering activities. There's a lot of opportunity to do that, to really get involved with different community events, depending on what kind of thing interests you and excites you. So I find it a really great environment to work in, which is why I'm still here after 15 years.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dan. Moving on from that, looking into the sort of development on the job itself, I guess just from your experience, how much training do you receive on the job on the finance graduate program?
Okay, so at Mondelez, we kind of work towards, it's called a 70-20-10 rule. So the idea is that 70% of your training is really on the job training. So as Dan said, basically we're put into roles that the business really needs us to do. And being put into a role like that is we think is the best way for you to develop. So if you're just thrown into the deep end, not literally left in the deep end, but you've got loads of support and help and guidance from your line manager, from your mentor. You get assigned a buddy as well when you first start, who's usually someone in the year above you on the grad scheme who you can go to with all those stupid questions when you first start and throughout the 3 years that you've got on the grad scheme. So that's where kind of 70% of your learning comes from. 20% then comes from your mentor and from learning from the people around you. So going to have a chat with one of the senior leaders about maybe how you can approach a particular problem, talking to one of your colleagues about how they've approached it, maybe in a different function or a different area of finance. So really learning from the people around you, whether they're people on the same level as you, people above you, senior leaders of the business. So that's really 20% of your learning. And then finally 10% we think comes from sort of formal training courses, so like the ones I talked about earlier on presentation skills, project management, how to develop Mondelez. So 10% of your learning really comes from those sort of official formal learning days where you spend a day focusing on developing your presentation skills.
Thank you very much. So you mentioned there about the different training courses that we have, sort of day courses or things like that. Now, with the finance graduate program, is there opportunity to work towards any sort of professional qualifications?
Yes, there is. So I'm currently working towards my CIMA qualifications. That's the Certified Institute of Management Accountants. Mondelez will support you to study towards either your CIMA qualification or ACCA. So myself and the other person in my year are both working towards CIMA at the moment, hopefully finishing August next year, all going well. And one of the girls in the year below me is currently working towards her ACCA qualification. And so Mondelez support you financially with those training schemes. So you have exams throughout 3 years and lectures and revision classes. And they also help you with study leave as well. So you get 4 days of study leave for each exam, which I'm starting tomorrow for my November exams. But yeah, they're really supportive. Everyone understands that as finance people, we have to do exams and everyone wants you to do well. So everyone's really supportive about taking a few days off for the exams. And yeah, the financial help as well for actually studying towards the qualification is really, really good at Mondelez.
Perfect, thank you very much. And you've already answered my next question, which was going to be what level of support is there? I guess we'll move on from that then. What was your motivation behind joining the finance graduate program? What really sort of appealed to you about this one in particular?
So I think for me, firstly, it was about the company. So when I was trying to decide what to do after I decided I didn't want to go into a science career, I talked to lots of different people, looked at lots of different industries. I looked at retail, FMCGs, I looked at pilot training with British Airways, I looked at lots of different random industries and careers, and talked to some people who are alumni from my university and from school. And a few of them have worked at FMCG companies like L'Oreal, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, a couple worked at Cadbury's. And for me, it was all about the brands and how excited those people got about when they were talking about what company they worked for. So they'd say, it's fantastic, I get going to work and I'm working on Cadbury's. Everyone knows Cadbury's, everyone loves Cadbury's. So for me, it was kind of that was what really attracted me about the company to start with. And then in terms of the grad scheme, it was the fact you're in a proper role from day one. So you're just thrown in there and you get a fantastic experience right from day one. It was all the support you get. So the fact that you've got a line manager who's always there when you need them, a mentor so my mentor is actually the director of CSNL in Ireland. So it's someone not in my function, but someone who's always there if I need to give them a call to discuss an issue I'm having, or some sort of careers guidance and help like that. And the buddy system as well has been really useful for me. And I'm a buddy for one of the grads in the year below me, and hopefully it's been useful for her as well. So the kind of supports, all the training that we get given, and the help towards studying for SEMA as well, I think all of that together is what really attracted me to the Mondelez grad scheme.
Okay, thank you very much. And obviously that was what brought you into the organisation. So if you had to pick one moment during your time here, what would you say has been the highlights of your time on the graduate programme?
Okay, so I think probably got one work-wise one and one more social one. So in terms of work-wise, something I wasn't particularly strong at when I first started was my presentation skills. So that was something I felt quite nervous about doing, standing up and giving a presentation to a big group of people. In my year in sales finance in Uxbridge, that was something I had to do every single month, was stand up to a group of 30 sales guys and give a presentation to them. So at the start, the first couple, I was terrified, but by the end of it, I would stand up confidently, present to them, be able to answer all their questions, crack a few jokes in the meantime. And so for me, that was like one of the highlights was, yeah, yes, I can do this. And that was all about being thrown in there and just having a go. And no one judges you if you get things wrong, but it's a fantastic way to develop. So that's my work one. Then in terms of more social side of it, so as Dan said, we have quite a strong community involvement at Mondelez. So every year, Mondelez enters a group of cyclists to ride across Britain from Land's End to Shonnagroats. In September, I was one of the 10 riders that did that, so cycling from Land's End to Shonnagroats to raise money for the British Paralympic Association. And so I'm not sure how many other companies give you opportunities like that, but that was a fantastic opportunity for me. So I'm doing all the fundraising, so raised £2,000 for the BPA, as well as spending a week with 10 other Mondelez guys cycling and camping all the country, which was a fantastic experience.
Thank you very much. And I guess all those presentations the sales guys have really prepared you for today's Hangout and the thousands and thousands of people that we'll be presenting to at the moment. So I guess moving on from that, what are your plans upon exiting the graduate programme? Where do you think you'll be going next within the organisation?
So not 100% certain at the moment, but I think there's got a lot of focus, as I said earlier, on cross-functional moves in Mondelez, and that's something I'm really keen to do for a year or two after the grad scheme. So just trying to get some more experience outside of finance for a year or so, which then really kind of gives you great experience to come back into finance and bring that knowledge back into the finance function. So possibly a cross-functional move to CSNL, or maybe it depends really what roles come up. But if there's a great role in finance, then another role in finance. So yeah, still thinking about it at the moment.
Okay, no worries. So Dan, I feel that we've left you on the sidelines a little bit there, so I'm going to direct the last question towards you, which is, I mean, where do the graduates usually end up sort of moving on to after the finance graduate program? What tends to be the next step?
I think, I mean, it changes a lot for different people. So you really do have, input into what it is that you want to do as well when you come off the scheme. So different people have ended up in lots of different career paths. The good thing is, I would say that an awful lot of our graduates are still here. So I'm still here after 15 years. So I talked before about my kind of career path. We've got a lot of graduates kind of go into, say, a commercial finance role after the scheme. We've got people who've gone, as Jess said, outside of finance. We've got people in the CSNL team looking at customer finance, who look after kind of accounts receivable and working with our customers on that kind of side of things. We've also got finance graduates from the last few years. We've in different countries, so I know personally, I know I've got someone in Sweden, we've got 2 or 3 that are based in Zurich, I've got someone that moved to Canada last year. So we've also got an awful lot of people still left in the UK that have done, had great different career experiences and are now our senior leaders within our finance function. So there's an awful lot of scope. I wouldn't say there's a typical path after you've done the graduate scheme. It depends on where each of the individual's strengths lie and where their, development opportunities lie and what it is that they really want to do and want to get out of their career. But there's an awful lot of different opportunities out there.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. That brings us towards the end of our Finance Graduate Programme Hangout. Thank you all for watching. I hope that you found this informative and that all of your questions have been answered. So we're going to sort of leave you be now. And for those of you that are waiting for the next one, our Sales Executives Hangout is going to be on Tuesday the 11th. So please tune into that one, same time, 3 p.m. on our Early Careers website. So I'd like to say thank you to Dan and Jess, thank you to those for watching, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much.